What you witnessed last night wasn't football. It was a public execution disguised as a preseason game. The Cleveland Browns didn't just win 19-7 against the Rams. They committed organizational suicide in front of a national audience, and every single person in that stadium knew exactly what they were watching unfold. Picture this: 23 seconds left on the clock. Victory within reach. Your rookie quarterback has been absolutely surgical all night long. 2 touchdown drives that looked like video game perfection, threading passes through coverage that made veteran defensive coordinators shake their heads in disbelief. The crowd is electric, players are locked in, and then Kevin Stefanski does the unthinkable. He taps Sanders on the shoulder and sends in Dillon Gabriel. The stadium didn't just go quiet, it exploded in pure, unfiltered rage. This wasn't disappointment from fans hoping for a miracle. This was the sound of an entire fan base recognizing sabotage in real time. Because what happened in those final 23 seconds wasn't coaching. It was politics dressed up as strategy, and everyone could smell the stench from the nosebleed seats. Let me paint you the picture of just how dominant Sanders had been before this betrayal. First quarter, a surgical 75-yard touchdown drive with 7 plays and 0 incompletions. Second quarter, another scoring march capped by a laser beam to the corner that had the Rams' defensive coordinator admitting at halftime, "That kid's different. We can't disguise anything against him." Third quarter, clock management, sustained drives, the kind of poised leadership that separates franchise quarterbacks from roster filler. Everything was building toward that moment, the 2-minute drill, the crucible where legends are forged. And that's exactly when Stefanski pulled the plug. Eyewitnesses on the Browns sideline described stunned silence. The offensive coordinator reportedly questioned the decision outright. Position coaches were exchanging looks like they just watched their head coach lose his mind on live television. Sanders himself simply removed his helmet after a 3-second glare that could have melted steel. No tantrum, no theatrics, just the quiet composure of someone who knew he'd just been stabbed in the back by his own team. But here's where it gets really ugly. One veteran lineman was heard muttering loud enough for staff to hear, "This is rigged, and everybody knows it." Within minutes, social media became a battlefield. #FrySanders was trending nationally in under 15 minutes. #StartSanders hit over 2 million impressions before the final whistle. #Stefanski sabotage emerged organically from disgusted fans who couldn't believe what they'd just witnessed. And what did Gabriel do when he got his golden opportunity? First play, delay of game penalty. Second play, botched snap, recovered but -8 yards. Third, a wild overthrow that nearly got intercepted. Fourth, a meek 3-yard check down. Fifth, intentional grounding. Sixth, a desperate heave into oblivion that made Tim Tebow look accurate. The Browns didn't win because of that series, they survived in spite of it. Mason Crosby's missed field goals saved them, not Gabriel, not Stefanski's genius game management. The contrast wasn't just unfavorable, it was absolutely humiliating. But this goes deeper than one preseason game, and the sources I'm hearing from paint a picture that should terrify every Browns fan. Word is that ownership demanded Joe Flacco, yes, 40-year-old Joe Flacco, start week 1. His practices have been mediocre at best, his arm is shot, his mobility is non-existent, yet ownership is clinging to this illusion of stability like a life raft on the Titanic. Gabriel represents organizational comfort, a third-round investment that fits their predetermined script. But Sanders represents disruption, revolution, proof that their system completely misjudged talent evaluation. And that terrifies them more than losing games. Inside that locker room, the frustration is boiling over. One defensive starter confided, "We see it every day in practice." He makes throws Gabriel can't even attempt. He processes the field faster, he leads better, and none of it matters because this isn't about talent anymore. It's about politics, and we're sick of politics deciding who plays. The timing of this betrayal reeks of orchestration. 2 hours before kickoff, reporters spotted Stefanski, GM Andrew Berry, and an ownership representative locked in a heated closed-door meeting. By game time, the entire game plan had shifted. Drive assignments were reshuffled, rep counts redistributed. The fix was in from the moment they walked into that room. Here's the cruelest irony in all of this. Sanders had prepared like his career depended on every single snap, because it did. First player in the building, last to leave. Film study past midnight, extra sessions with receivers, protection meetings with linemen. He lived and breathed football, like one rep could define his entire future. And all of that work ethic, all of that precision, all of that dominance was undercut not by competition, but by organizational fear. Because here's the truth that's keeping executives awake at night. Sanders succeeding means the front office failed. Every touchdown pass indicts their draft strategy. Every standing ovation from the crowd erodes ownership credibility. Every poised drive under pressure exposes years of systemic incompetence. When Sanders commanded that huddle, the entire offense elevated to another level. Receivers ran sharper routes because they knew the ball would arrive precisely on target. Offensive linemen held their blocks with extra intensity because they trusted their quarterback would make something happen under pressure. Running backs sold play action fakes with conviction because they knew defenders' eyes would be glued to the real threat behind center. Then Gabriel entered the game, and the collapse wasn't gradual, it was instant. The energy shift wasn't subtle, it was seismic. Professional athletes recognize these dynamics immediately. They know who makes their job easier versus who makes it harder, who elevates the collective performance versus who drags it down, who deserves opportunities versus who receives them through political maneuvering. And right now, Cleveland's locker room is watching the worthy get suppressed while the undeserving get elevated. That breeds resentment, that festers into dysfunction, that annihilates team chemistry before the season even begins. This isn't just a football debate anymore, it's organizational malpractice bordering on criminal negligence. Championship-caliber defenses don't stay intact forever. Free agency disperses talent, injuries mount, motivation wanes with age. The Browns' competitive window might span 2 seasons at best, and they're about to waste it protecting egos and political investments. Sanders stayed publicly silent after the game. No cryptic tweets, no fiery interviews, no visible reaction whatsoever. But confidants whisper about private fury. As one insider revealed, he knows exactly what happened. Everyone knows, but he's too intelligent to hand them ammunition for more sabotage. His restraint is remarkable because lesser players would have erupted, demanded trades, or ignited media firestorms. Instead, Sanders chose composure and discipline. Veterans respect that response. Young players admire it. Even coaches privately commend it. And that restraint only underscores how shameful the organization's treatment truly is. They're not just sabotaging extraordinary ability, they're punishing sterling character. Tomorrow, Stefanski will step to that podium armed with corporate doublespeak. He'll drone on about evaluation processes, difficult decisions, and competitive depth. But the reality is crystal clear. He executed ownership's mandate, forsaking competitive integrity for job security. He chose politics over principle, and that's now his permanent legacy, the coach who benched undeniable talent for organizational convenience. General Manager Andrew Berry won't fare any better. He'll dress his defense in jargon about developmental timelines and long-term philosophy, but the translation is simple. We cannot admit we made a mistake, so we'll compound it with an even bigger one. Every word will be institutional cowardice dressed up as patience. Cleveland's fan base, multi-generational sufferers hardened by the drive, the fumble, the relocation, the Jersey graveyard, the Manziel catastrophe, the Mayfield letdown, the Watson fiasco, has finally reached complete obliteration of patience. They were handed hope in the form of Sanders, only to watch it get snatched away with cruelty that's almost unimaginable. It's like showing a starving man a banquet, then ripping the plate away just as he reaches for food. The online revolution has already begun. #FreeSanders is surging toward millions of mentions. Season ticket holders are plotting demonstrations outside team facilities. Local businesses are stripping Browns promotions from their stores. Talk radio is burning with outrage unlike anything in Cleveland sports history. This isn't just incompetence, it's betrayal, it's sabotage, it's institutional malpractice unfolding in real time. Inside that facility, fractures are deepening by the hour. Player-only meetings are forming, veterans are questioning organizational commitment, young players are whispering about systematic betrayal. Trust has evaporated completely. Unity has crumbled into dust. Stefanski spent an entire offseason trying to fabricate team cohesion, only to obliterate it in 23 seconds of political game-playing. The defense is absolutely furious, and rightfully so. They've carried this franchise for years while watching championship windows get squandered by inadequate quarterback play. One Pro Bowl defender was overheard saying, "I won't destroy my body for a team that doesn't actually want to win games." Offensive players are echoing that sentiment because they know who delivers strikes versus who forces circus catches, who keeps defensive boxes honest versus who makes their jobs impossibly difficult. Behind the scenes, Sanders' representation is quietly preparing documentation, not demanding a trade yet, but building an airtight case of organizational injustice. Other franchises are already circling like sharks, making whispered inquiries. And that should terrify Cleveland loyalists, because the nightmare scenario isn't Sanders failing here. It's Sanders thriving somewhere else, while Cleveland remains chained to decades more mediocrity. The immediate future presents completely impossible dynamics. Thursday's practice looms under intensifying media scrutiny, with every throw analyzed like archaeological evidence. How do you install a game plan when nobody believes in the play caller? How do you build offensive chemistry when controversy devours every conversation? How do you establish any rhythm when rotations are dictated by politics instead of performance? Friday brings the final preseason game under national broadcast lights, the perfect stage for public humiliation. If Stefanski starts Gabriel or Flacco, that stadium will detonate in fury. If he starts Sanders, ownership interference returns with a vengeance. There's no winning outcome because the organization engineered an unwinnable scenario through pure cowardice. Consider the psychological devastation being inflicted on Sanders right now. 22 years old, with his entire life sculpted for this exact moment. Every childhood sacrifice rationalized by NFL dreams, every doubt weaponized as motivation, every criticism harnessed as fuel for improvement. He finally earned his opportunity, seized it completely, excelled spectacularly, then had it stolen by organizational politics. The frustration is immeasurable, the anger is justified, yet he refuses to implode publicly. That resilience, that mental steel forged in adversity, separates generational talents from temporary good players. Sanders is proving his greatness not only through field performance, but through his response to injustice. Meanwhile, Gabriel faces entirely different pressure. He knows perception is poisoned, that he's seen as management's puppet rather than the locker room's preference. Every mistake gets magnified, every success attributed to favoritism rather than merit. Flacco watches this circus with veteran detachment. At 40 years old, with a Super Bowl ring and over $100 million in career earnings, he doesn't need this chaos. He never expected to start, who have gladly mentored young quarterbacks while collecting final paychecks in peace. Instead, the Browns drag him into organizational dysfunction, turning him into a symbol of resistance to change rather than progress. Every franchise across the league is observing this meltdown, re-evaluating scouting philosophies, and questioning evaluation processes. The safe bet says Stefanski picks survival over principle. He'll mumble vague cliches about open competition and difficult decisions while evading responsibility. Understandable perhaps, but devastatingly disappointing because history's judgment is absolutely merciless. He'll be remembered as the coach who benched undeniable talent for political convenience, who sacrificed competitive advantage for organizational conformity, who chose safety over success. That epitaph shadows every accomplishment thereafter, and his locker room is evaluating that leadership daily. When organizations demonstrate these values, effort decays, preparation suffers, and performance inevitably declines. The economic tremors have already begun rippling through the organization. Merchandise sales are dipping, ticket resales are spiking, sponsorship talks have stalled, broadcast ratings are wobbling. Empty stadiums don't sell concessions, disgusted fans don't buy jerseys, abandoned season tickets destroy local revenue streams. The financial reckoning is approaching whether ownership acknowledges it or not. Sanders will sleep tonight with peace in one hand and fire in the other. He knows he won despite losing the job, proved superiority with every snap, demonstrated excellence amid sabotage, and maintained dignity facing injustice. His time will come because justice always arrives eventually. Talent cannot be buried forever. Politics can delay greatness, but never deny it completely. The Cleveland Browns expose themselves not just as a team, but as an institution choosing politics over performance, cowardice over courage, manipulation over merit. That's the real result from last night. That's tomorrow's headline. That will be history's judgment unless something fundamental changes immediately. If you're as fired up about this organizational betrayal as every true Browns fan should be, smash that like button and subscribe to Browns Breakout for the unfiltered truth about what's really happening inside this franchise. Because this story is far from over, and when Sanders finally gets a shot, whether in Cleveland or elsewhere, we'll be here to document every moment of vindication. The revolution has begun, and it's time to choose sides. The final word belongs to the fan base who witnessed this betrayal firsthand. They recognized sabotage, understood the implications, and their response will chart this franchise's future. Tonight, they've chosen revolution over resignation. Hashtag Free Sanders isn't just a hashtag anymore. It's a movement, a demand, a declaration that talent must trump politics, that performance must supersede predetermined narratives, and that football requires organizational integrity. The Browns' time for excuses is officially over.